Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture, and it's Billboard Breakdown. This was one of those weeks where I expected a lot more activity than what actually happened. It's actually a little bit uncanny given how busy I am right now that I was almost expecting there to be more here thanks to big album releases. And sure, that did make something of an impact to the charts, but it felt oddly muted to me, not quite causing the upheaval that could really change the direction going into the summer. And nowhere is that more apparent than in our top 10, where to my surprise, Despacito by Luis Fonsi, Daddy Yankee featuring Justin Bieber on the remix is still at number 1. Really, I don't know why I'm all that surprised it's still here. It took the top spot on the radio, it still rules sales and streaming, except in the details here are a little bit more telling, as it did slip in on-demand streaming and YouTube, which might now show a possible sign of some weakness in some volatile territory. And you can tell that DJ Khaled and his posse will reap the rewards of this, with I'm the One holding up at number 2 thanks to strengths across the board, streaming gains, even better YouTube, and slowing but still rising radio strength, and Wild Thoughts with Rihanna and Bryson Tiller rising up to number 3 on even better streaming and real radio momentum, even if the sales did slip a little bit. It'll be a major question that after the big sales boost for the album, how long all this will last, but for now, it's Shoved Back, That's What I Like by Bruno Mars down to number 4, where good sales and streaming wasn't enough to compensate for YouTube steadily slipping and along with a lot of the airplay. It also kept Shape of You by Ed Sheeran from returning any higher, but the bigger surprise is that it's still here at all at number 5, until you look at its airplay and YouTube, which aren't quite dropping as fast as you would otherwise think. Then you have our big new arrival to the top 10, boosted by the release of the album and plenty of sales, Believer by Imagine Dragons at number 6, a song that somehow grates on my nerves even more with every single listen. Now, how long it will last here is an open question. Good radio, okay streaming gains, but no real YouTube presence as a buffer, and if the sales drop off, well, we'll see here. Then we've got Humble by Kendrick Lamar forced back to number 7, and I'm honestly not certain how much longer it will last in the top 10. Given streaming took a hit, sales aren't great, and airplay looks to be dropping, which is not the case for Congratulations by Post Malone featuring Quavo staying at number 8, where streaming gains and decent enough YouTube compensate for a pretty bad sales week, but again, it's starting to pick up radio now, so it could be viable going forward. It did hold steady compared to Mask Off by Future down to number 9, again, as it loses streaming and airplay, it's probably going to be out of the top 10 pretty soon. And with something just like this by the Chainsmokers and Coldplay going down to number 10, it might be propped up a little bit by its sales, but weak streaming and declining airplay probably means it's got a similar fate. And on that oh so promising note are losers and dropouts. Only 2 major ones in the latter category. Scars to Your Beautiful by Alessia Cara, it finally makes its exit, had a pretty good run there too. And much to my surprise, Look at Me by XXXTentacion, leaving just shy of the points its needs gonna make to the year-end list in 2017, which, okay, I'm down. And while I'm not really fazed by it, as you can tell, I am a little bit unnerved by the continued losses for Sign of the Times by Harry Styles down to 58. It'll probably be fine given how many more weeks it has left on the Hot 100 before going to the recurring list, but still, not a good sign. The other losers, Cold by Maroon 5 and Future continues on its way out to 91. Good Drank by 2 Chainz, Quavo, and Gucci Mane loses the album boost down to 97. And How Not To by Dan and Shay actually got a premature loss down to 80. Now granted, country radio does have a bit of a reputation for hard shifts in airplay rotation when the seasons start to change, especially going into the summer. Which takes us to our gains and 3 sharp spikes for country songs, like Do I Make You Wanna by Billy Currington up to 72, Small Town Boy by Dustin Lynch up to 65, and My Girl by Dylan Scott up to 45. Beyond that, of course, Imagine Dragons yanked Thunder up to 54 with the release of the album, but the surprise for me came with the gains for The Cure by Lady Gaga up to 46. I guess a good sales week would do that for you, but still, it's a surprise how that song has not tanked as seemingly everyone seemed to assume that it would. And then when we get to our returning entries, well, they all make sense. There are not really any surprises here. Shining by DJ Khaled featuring Jay-Z and Beyonce is back up to 98 thanks to the album drop. Element by Kendrick Lamar is at 89 thanks to the video coming out. And in the best possible news, Bruno Mars chose Versace on the Floor as the next single from 24 Karat Magic, so it's back to 78, with a remix from David Guetta adding a little bit more of that crossover boost. I don't think he really needs it, but still, it's a fantastic song. I'm happy it's back. But speaking about our new arrivals, Again, it's a pretty sparse week, but I hope you all can excuse me for keeping it short here, not bringing in a world hit given how jammed up my schedule is right now. So let's start off with number 94, Crew by GoldLink featuring Brent, Faiyaz, and Shy Glizzy.
Came out of hiding, girl. Don't act like I'm your man. You just a fan. You don't hold ring. No, don't hold no ring.
So okay, this was one of those songs that I had expected to hear about on the charts before now. Most because GoldLink's debut record dropped back in March, and I got precisely 0 requests to cover it, so maybe that explains that. But hey, beyond that, maybe this lead-off single would have some promise, right? Well, I think it does. GoldLink's vocal tone reminds me a little bit more of a toned-down Big Sean, but its much faster flows have a certain easygoing charisma that generally is pretty likable opposite the cracking percussion, the thicker bass, and the glossy cushion of the vocal samples behind him. Sure, he's not really saying anything that's all that interesting or distinct, but it's a nice enough contrast to Brent Faiyaz's vocals. When then you get Shy Glizzy, and while he might have a little bit more color in his lyrics, his vocal tone and much more basic flow doesn't remotely flatter the groove of the song or match up with the hook in the same way. So yeah, there's a part of me that's not remotely surprised I didn't get requests to cover this guy's debut album. But beyond that, not really all that bad, but not all that distinctive either, if I'm being honest. Number 88, On Everything by DJ Khaled featuring Travis Scott, Rick Ross, and Big Sean.
That's on my life, yeah. I just pull up in my everything. Hey DJ Khaled, I'll die for you, nigga. In my everything. So you already know I kill for you. That's on my life, yeah.
So this is one of 2 DJ Khaled songs that debuted off the record Grateful this week. And what frustrates me is that both of the songs that debuted feature Travis Scott, and it's an issue of trying to balance the production that tries to anchor a vocal sample with more bombastic skittering percussion that already feels like a pretty cluttered mix, and then you factor in Travis Scott putting his auto-tune through the works and it just ends up sounding messy as all hell. Now, to be fair, both Big Sean and Rick Ross step up on their verses. Ross tends to sound pretty good against Khaled's production even if his content's not all that interesting. And you know what, to his credit, Big Sean doesn't actually embarrass himself in his bars. Not brilliantly clever or challenging, but they're certainly passable. I didn't mind his verse. Shame the hook feels like such a mess against production that for DJ Khaled sounds way more ramshackle and overstuffed than it really should. But again, the song, it's tolerable. Mostly. Number 71, No Complaints by Metro Boomin featuring Offset and Drake.
Steak on my plate, steak. My sons are done. My bitch Amazon. My plug is hung. She fucking for son.
So am I the only one who finds it a little bit weird when hip-hop producers take the main billing on a song and then don't even rap on it? I mean, I get it. All the more common for an era of an act like DJ Khaled where producers make the artist rather than the other way around. But at least DJ Khaled has his meme and oversized personality, which Metro Boomin doesn't seem to have for me. At least not compared to getting both Offset and Drake on the song. Really, it's more of an Offset song overall, which is a bit of a shame because compared to Takeoff's more complex punchlines and the color that Quavo can bring, Offset doesn't really impress me as a solo artist on a song like this. His content's not all that interesting. Granted, he gets this sort of triplet flow and structure much better than Drake does, and I can't be the only one who thinks that he just sounds awkward here, am I? These short little staccato fragments, that's not really in Drake's wheelhouse. It makes him seem underwritten, especially when they don't really highlight any sort of distinct or interesting detail. As for the production, look, I've been hearing plenty of Metro Boomin's desaturated, slightly atonal synths against grimy bass and your generic hi-hat for years now, and slight little melodic shifts of the beat switch after the final hook that doesn't really do much to win me over. Granted, there's nothing outright awful about this song, but it's not anything I'm gonna remember in a day. It's kind of just mediocre. Just saying. Number 68, Don't Quit by DJ Khaled and Calvin Harris featuring Travis Scott and Jeremih.
You're doing good right now, don't quit. Put your OGs on, or they won't fit. My little baby on thick dick. Cut her ass too fast, so don't quit. You know I like it like that, so don't quit. Let's go!
You know, it's funny, listening to this one at this very moment, I'm working on my review for Calvin Harris's new album, probably gonna drop later tonight, especially when this song's broad, funky bass and guitar are so much more reminiscent of Calvin Harris's production than anything in DJ Khaled's wheelhouse, only really touched on by that jingling percussion. And while again, I'm no fan of Travis Scott's hooks on any of this, spoilers, this applies to Calvin Harris too, he just doesn't ride these grooves all that well, the hook, I will say, is marginally better, even if the auto-tune feels a little bit wonky against the squonking bass, at least until you realize that it's all about how this girl's butt is so big it doesn't fit in any of her pants. At least Jeremih feels a little bit more comfortable against this groove, and you know what, it is one hell of a groove until you realize that slight trilling bell that cuts through the entire mix. But man, of the DJ Khaled songs that could have crossed over, there are definitely worse options, but there were better ones too, especially as we're going to get a lot of Calvin Harris coming up next week. But as it is, this is fine enough, I guess. Didn't mind it. Check it out if you're interested. And finally, number 36, Signs by Drake.
Real close to me, I gotta catch myself, I can't blame myself, I need to take it easy,
So I can't be the only one who thinks that 2017 has not been a very good year for Drake, right? I mean, sure, More Life was a thing for a couple days maybe, but it sure as hell didn't seem to last all that long, as most of the singles have underperformed and rappers like Kendrick Lamar smashed through with far more consistent success. Sure, he had Fake Love, which sucked, and he had Passion Fruit, which was fine enough, I guess. But beyond that, maybe it's an issue of overexposure, which I've been citing for years now as a problem that I've had with Drake, just to take a little bit more time, come back, sound a little bit more fresh. But instead, we've got Signs, a non-album single that apparently is tied into a Louis Vuitton promotion. Yeah, seriously, that's why it's here. But okay, just because it's tied to a promotion doesn't exactly mean the song has to be bad, right? Especially if he's sticking with more of his R&B mold, which isn't a bad fit for Drake. Well, yeah, it's not bad. The groove still feels a little bit sterile and muted with only hints of a backing sample buried in the mix against the tapping percussion. But Drake, he sounds so checked out, and it definitely starts to drag down a lot of the energy of the song. Sure as hell doesn't sound all that love-struck, as he realizes this girl wants so much out of him, and he just can't say no to her as much as he probably should. Again, he doesn't even sound angry at this point, just kind of tired and exasperated. And look, I don't doubt that there is a certain low-key restraint that I can kind of admire about the song, but considering how much the groove reminds me of One Dance except with less color and less melodic spark, and I didn't really like One Dance either, I don't really see this having as much crossover appeal even as that song. Again, it's not bad, but it's pretty flat. At least for me. So yeah, pretty damn short week, and pretty underwhelming too. I guess the best I'm gonna give to Don't Quit by DJ Khaled and Calvin Harris, with Travis Scott and Jeremih for having the most actual groove and spark and color to it. And the worst, yeah, no complaints from Metro Boomin, Offset, and Drake. Most because Drake really did not deliver his best on that verse. It was really disappointing. Guess it happens. We're bound to get a lot more flavor next week from Calvin Harris, and I can't believe I'm citing that as positive, but times have changed. Until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.